Hello again and welcome to the Scoring from the 50 podcast. We are jam-packed today. Clemson and Duke are playing right as I'm recording this podcast. We have our updated top 25 after the week 1 football games. And I have a review on every single game I talked about last Thursday. I am a little bit under the weather. I have had some bad allergies, or maybe it's a cold, I'm not really sure. But if I sound stuffy, I'm really sorry. But let's get right into it. My top 25, Georgia, Michigan, Alabama. The top 3 all staying the same, but 4, 5, and 6 are all different. 4 is Florida State moving up from number 8. Penn State jumped Ohio State to move up to 5, and Ohio State moved down 1 spot to 6. LSU dropped from 4 to 8, so Florida State and LSU completely switched spots. From there, nothing changes until you get to number 15. Notre Dame has been upgraded 2 spots. Oregon State has been knocked down 1 spot. North Carolina is up 2 spots to 17. K-State's down 2 spots just to 18. Oklahoma's down 1 to 19. Wisconsin and Tulane are both up 1 spot to 20 and 21. Iowa's up 2. Ole Miss is up 2 to 22 and 23. And 2 new teams in the top 25 is Duke and Colorado. That's right. Deion Sanders' Colorado Buffaloes are in the top 25 for week 2. TCU and Texas Tech have dropped out after losing to Colorado and Wyoming. Now, my reasoning for certain things, like FSU, they looked really, really good against LSU. Jaden Verse looks like a top 5 defender in the country. Keon Coleman shined so brightly. 9 catches, 122 yards, and 3 touchdowns in his Florida State debut. Jordan Travis looked like a Heisman contender, going 23 for 31 with 342 yards and 4 passing touchdowns. Pair that with Johnny Wilson, who had 7 catches and 104 yards. It's going to be really hard to stop that offense going forward. The defense looked really good, completely neutralized LSU's run game. Couldn't really get any offense going for LSU. FSU looked like a top 5 team, college football playoff team. They have legit national championship hopes after game 1. They have one more game against Clemson, and that's the only really, really tough game for the rest of the season other than the ACC championship. But Florida State looked really, really, really good. Definitely a college football playoff contender. LSU did not look good at all, especially in the second half. Jaden Daniels did throw for 347 yards, but 75 of them were a garbage time touchdown at the end. Pair that with some terrible decisions that he made, just throwing it to the other team, right to him, and he did not look good at all. The main problem is that Jaden Daniels also was their leading rusher with 64 yards, and LSU couldn't get any run game going at all. Completely neutralized by Florida State's defensive line. O-line really needs to step up and create bigger holes for that run game if they want to become a college football playoff contender like Florida State now is. Ohio State did drop 1 spot, only 1. They really look like they don't have a quarterback. They did not play good. Kyle McCord does not look good enough to be an Ohio State quarterback. The defense did play really good, completely stifled that Indiana offense. It's Indiana, not great, but they did completely neutralize that offense. If you're an Ohio State fan, I would not be freaking out at all. The offense was never going to look good week 1, especially with a new quarterback. Coming off a QB battle, Ohio State just wasn't ever going to look good week 1. But the defense did look great, and if you're an Ohio State fan, you're feeling great about the defense. I'm going to say that. You haven't held a team to 3 or less points since 2019, and you finally did it this year, the year that you really needed defense to step up. I wouldn't be too worried. I think you guys will figure it out offensively. I think either Kyle McCord or Devin Brown, if he steps in, will be good enough to win you football games. The only problem is you only have 3 weeks to figure it out before you have to go to South Bend and try to beat a Notre Dame team that looks really, really good right now. That transitions us to our next topic, which is Notre Dame and North Carolina. They've both just looked really, really good in their games. The teams that they jumped really aren't playing bad, especially Oklahoma. They just won 78-0. But it's just those teams have played really good, and that's why they jumped those teams. and why the others look like they fell. But really, it's in my eyes, they're not falling. It's Notre Dame and North Carolina are really stepping up instead of them taking a step back. Now, Colorado might have 2 Heisman contenders on their team. I don't want to spend too much talking about them because we'll talk about them later, but they're getting a ton of attention right now, so I don't want to talk too much about them. But they look like they could have 2 legitimate Heisman contenders and could compete for maybe making a bowl game. They're in my top 25, mostly just because I want to give them some attention and some good attaboys for them. I really hope that Deion can make this into a 6-win bowl game team. Now, to review my must-watch games from last week, starting off with Florida and Utah. That was such a gutsy win from Utah. They had their starting quarterback out of the game. He did not play. Duke and Clemson are just now getting underway for the second half. It is 7-6, Clemson over Duke after Duke fumbled in field goal range to end the first half. Riley Leonard gets 10 yards for a first down to start the half. I'll keep you guys updated as that's going. I won't have time to do a podcast tomorrow, which is why I'm doing it during the game instead of after. But Duke has looked really good. Obviously, they're in my top 25 even before this game ends. And Riley Leonard has looked good. They've just made a couple mistakes, couple turnovers, or else they would be winning this game handedly. Now, back to the matter I was just talking about. Utah played great. They played so good. Their defense looked amazing. Played without their starting quarterback. Their heart and soul of the team was out of that game, yet Utah still found a way to beat a okay Florida team. Still a really gutsy win without their quarterback, and their defense looked ready to win a 3rd straight Pac-12 championship. Now to Colorado and TCU. I know you guys have been waiting for this, but Colorado won that game. Are you kidding me? In all caps. That's what I wrote in my notes. Are you kidding me? Deion Sanders might be a really good coach, not just a really cool personality. Travis Hunter could win the Heisman. Shedeur Sanders could win the Heisman. And you could go ahead and throw him on that long list of really, really good Pac-12 QBs. I cannot wait to see where they're going to go, because now it feels like they could win 10 games. You know, it's just one game. And you could win 6 games and make a bowl and be really happy with that. Or you could go win 10 games, compete for a Pac-12 championship. Who knows? This team just became a ginormous question mark, whatever it already was. And with that Deion Sanders coach, he created a rivalry in this season of college football that no one is going to talk about. No one is. It is between him and Mike Norvell. And pause and let that sink in. Him and Mike Norvell. What do those two coaches have to do with each other? Well, Mike Norvell has been the past few years building Florida State from the ground up, right? It's taken him, 2-3 years to get this team to be what they are now. Oh, and Duke just scored a touchdown? They did. What just happened? I looked over and Duke has scored a touchdown. A 44-yard rush from Riley Leonard. Wow. And Duke goes up 12-7 for now, pinning the extra point. What a play. Oh, broke a tackle. Stayed on his feet. Oh, and he's gone. Number 8 with a huge block and a missed tackle from the Clemson DB. And that's a touchdown for Duke. Wow, that puts Clemson in a lot of trouble. It is 12-7 for now. Back to Deion and Mike Norvell. Mike Norvell has spent a ton of time building this team, and it took patience from the Florida State athletic director, from the fans, and from everyone. And this year, we're going to see a battle between Deion Sanders, who took 1 year to maybe, possibly, create a really good football team. They beat the reigning national runner-ups. I know that's not the same team. They've lost all their good players. I know that is definitely not the same team, but that's still the reigning national runner-ups. But Mike Norvell, on the other hand, has taken 3-4 years to create a team that's good enough to compete for a college football playoff, to compete for a national championship. I'm curious as to going forward, what athletic directors try and find their Deion Sanders and win right away, but take that huge risk, and it's going to fail more often than not. This Deion Sanders guy, he's unreplaceable. He is a special guy who cannot be replicated or replaced. So I'm curious if there's going to be athletic directors who hire the wrong guy countless times, or if they're going to try and find their Mike Norvell, who takes a lot of time but eventually builds that team into something really good that's going to work a lot more often than a Deion Sanders. You see a lot more Mike Norvells or Jim Harbaugh or a Brian Kelly back in the days, building them up from a 2000s not good Notre Dame era. Or a Jim Tressel, an Ohio State guy, trying to build back that team from the terrible 90s. Like, that is going to work a lot more often than a Deion Sanders will. So I'm curious if athletic directors are going to make more mistakes going forwards trying to find another Deion whenever you can't find another Deion. That is a huge rivalry that I think we're going to see play out without the season, depending on how good Florida State does, depending on how good Colorado does. Should be very interesting, but Colorado, huge question mark now, even bigger than they were somehow. Can they win 6 games? Can they win 10 games? Or will they win 3? Who knows? Not even me. Only the college football gods will know that. But Boise State and Washington is the next game I talked about. Not a lot to talk about there. Washington completely blew them out. I put them on upset alert, but that was just because I know Boise State's a good team. Historically, they're a really good team. But Washington just completely outplayed them in every facet of the game. They put up 59 points. Defense played great. Washington is another college football playoff contender. West Virginia at Penn State. My review for this one is that Penn State is really, really, really good. Drew Aller played lights out. They are a real threat to dethrone a Michigan or to take down an Ohio State. They have got to be terrified right now if they're a Michigan or Ohio State defensive coach. Penn State looked really good. Drew Aller played out of his mind. He is a top 3 quarterback in the Big Ten. Probably top 2. Possibly even better than J.J. McCarthy. He's a top 10 quarterback in the country. Do not sleep on Drew Aller. Do not sleep on that Penn State team. There's a reason why I bumped them up in my rankings this week. But yeah, very interesting for Penn State. Excited to see where they go from week 1. Now, the North and South Carolina game. Wow, did North Carolina look good. Their defense looked so much more improved from last year. It looks like UNC could really contend for an ACC championship along with Clemson or FSU. Their defensive line looked great. But the question is, was it North Carolina's defensive line or was it how bad South Carolina offensive line it was? Oh, hold on. We got a big play here for Clemson. 3rd and goal from the 11. Cade Klubnik QB draw, and Duke makes the tackle at the 5-yard line. Lincoln Riley with a huge decision to make here on 4th and goal from the 5, and he takes Cade Klubnik off the field, and it looks like he's going to try and make this a 3-point game and go to 13-10. Now back to North Carolina and South Carolina. I have taken a break and gotten to water, but the timing won't be completely correct here. But I felt terrible, so I really needed a drink here. And let's see if this kick is good. And it is. Oh, they blocked another one. Duke blocks another kick and keeps it as a 6-point game. Are you kidding me? Oh my gosh, they're going crazy in that crowd. Whew, okay. North Carolina, an arch rival of Duke, in basketball at least. They looked great. Defensive line looked so good. Their defense looked really good. And South Carolina did not look very good at all. Especially their offensive line. Oh man. Wow. North Carolina looks like an ACC contender. Really, really excited to see where they go. Excited to see if they can knock off one of those top teams. And I think they can if they play decent enough defense and they can answer the amount of points that the other team will score. Now I'm going to skip over this Duke and Clemson game because it's not over yet, but Duke is looking really good so far. They just blocked their 2nd kick of the night. Special teams, besides for one muff punt, has played really good for Duke so far. Hopefully, this doesn't look terrible after the game and me praising Duke. But on to the FSU and LSU game, Florida State looked so good. They looked like a national championship contender. Florida State looked like what we thought LSU could look like. Great QB play with the good receivers and a very, very solid run game. Jordan Travis plus Keon Coleman plus Johnny Wilson equals a top 5 offense in the country. Jared Verse is a great football player and can lead that team to a very, very good defense. LSU did not look like the team we thought they would be. Jaden Daniels needs to play better. He made too many mistakes. He needs to be smarter with the football. He needs to make better throws, more accurate throws. Just needs to be a better overall quarterback. He needs to be very smarter. Defense needs to learn how to finish the game instead of just giving up in the second half. They need to improve in a lot of areas if they want to compete for a college football playoff spot. But Florida State, wow, I am speechless after how good they looked, especially in that second half. The defense looked like exactly what we wanted from that defense, and the offense looked even better than it did last year. Jared Verse, he's so good. He looked like a top 5 defensive player in the country last Sunday, and wow, I could not have been more impressed by that Seminole team. LSU, just huge disappointment. I had them going 12-0 in the regular season, and they just completely threw that away. Threw it right back in my face, and I was completely wrong. First week, I was already proved wrong. Gosh darn it, LSU. But it's okay, because it was a great game, especially that first half, and then FSU pulls away. Cannot wait to see what else is in store for the college football season. Next week, we're going to be talking a lot about Texas and Alabama, and I know a lot of Big 12 teams are getting after it in out-of-conference play. But thank you so much for listening. I seriously cannot thank you guys enough for listening. It means so much to me. Even whenever I see just 10 viewers on these videos, it just completely warms my heart. It makes my day every day. But thank you so much for listening. I will talk to you on Thursday to preview those Week 2 games that I just talked about. Don't forget to like and subscribe this video and follow me on Apple Podcast. But I will see you guys on Thursday. It is now one day later after the Clemson and Duke game, and I just wanted to update you guys. I now have Clemson falling to 24 from 7, and I now have Duke up to 23 instead of 24 like I said last night. But again, thank you guys so much for listening, and I will see you guys on Thursday.